I'm excited to moderate this session entitled Advanced Degrees, Are They Worth It? We have two panelists here with us. So I will first introduce each panelist and then we'll talk about their masters and then the career impact it has had, and then we'll open it up for any questions. And then we're also going to be recording this, as you guys saw from the little pop-up, so that we can post them for the group at large. This way people who are unable to make it today can still listen in and gain all the little pearls. All right, so our first panelist is Dr. Tong Yang. He is an assistant professor of emergency medicine through Medical College of Wisconsin and the assistant residency program director and co-director of simulation, scholarship, and research. His special interests are in using simulation to provide patient safety and delivery of quality and the delivery of quality care to patients in the hospital system. He is currently earning his master's in health professions, education, and MHPE from Johns Hopkins. He's graduating soon in December. And he's also enrolling in the Marquette University for Executive Masters in Business Administration, so the EMBA, so that he can better understand the human resources and business administrations of an organization. And he is also the Simulation Center Director for the Medical College of Wisconsin. And Dr. Justin Jeffers, he is an assistant professor of emergency medicine at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. He is also the director of pediatric emergency simulation and an associate director of BaseCamp, and the president-elect of the International Pediatric Simulation Society. His academic interests are in the intersection of simulation, resuscitation, and advanced technology. And he obtained his MHPE also through Johns Hopkins School of Education. Oh, Julie just popped on. Perfect. So our third panelist is here. Hi. So Julie is an assistant professor of emergency medicine at Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine and an affiliate faculty member through the Armstrong Institute for Patient Safety. She has a special interest in curriculum development and adaptation, simulation-based interprofessional education, and the creation of psychologically safe workplaces. She is the director of simulation education for their EM residency program, and today she's going to be talking about her master's in medical and healthcare simulation education from Drexel University. Awesome. So the first question to the group is, why did you decide to go for your master's? And if you can talk a little bit about the master's that you've obtained / are obtaining. Yeah, we'll start there.
I guess I'll go first. So it's good to see everybody, and thank you for having me. Pleasure to chat with everybody about this today. So my master's is medical education, basically, and my kind of path to it was a little bit fortuitous in that med ed and sim has always been on my career path, and my fellowship was at Northwestern in Chicago, and they, at the time, and still are, one of the kind of the leaders in pediatric simulation. But the fortuitous part is, while I was there, they had a donation that was meant to be used for educational purposes. So I started my master's at the Cincinnati program, basically for free, and then Hopkins, one of the really great things about it is the tuition remission, and so I basically was able to continue getting my master's for free. It's, I'll just, money aside, it's been 100% worth it for me. I think, I was going to do the work anyway. I was going to do the research part anyway, and just having the background and the letters behind my name to kind of support that has been completely worthwhile. And I will try to sell everybody on getting some sort of advanced degree today. So.
I'm happy to go next. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Justin, can you hear me? Okay, cool. Justin and I work together a lot, so we know each other here at the Hop. So I have a master's in medical and healthcare simulation. Unfortunately, the program I went to, it was offered through Drexel, and it was a simulation education. So it was really a master's in education for healthcare with a focus on experiential learning, which meant that I had dedicated coursework to feedback and debriefing. I had a lot of dedicated coursework to developing experiential learning models. Spent a long time learning about things like aviation and aerospace and how they apply simulation. So that was very interesting to me. And the reason why I chose not to do the Hopkins master's program was that I had quite a few faculty in my department that had gone through that master's, med ed master's. And I thought that it would be nice to have a different perspective. So I decided to go to that Drexel program. I also chose not to do a fellowship in simulation. I felt that I was reading a lot of articles and I was making a lot of contacts, and I didn't know if going away for fellowship was going to be as useful as just going and doing a dedicated master's program. And by not being a fellow and going right into being an attending, I then had the cash to pay for this master's degree. So that's kind of how I worked it out. I ended up doing that program. Now that program is no longer offered, unfortunately, in the form that I took it. So that is unfortunate, but like Justin, I really encourage everybody to get a higher degree in education if you want to be a professional educator, because it gives you the language to communicate with other educators. I find that it's much easier for me to talk to other educators, especially when it comes to program building, because I have that the language. Just like you have learned the language of medicine, now I know the education language. It allows me to communicate easier. It allows me to write up papers easier. I think my research projects have better methodology, and it gave me a lot of connections and opportunity for mentorship. So I really appreciated that, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have about it.
I think I'm going to go next. Hi, everybody. It seems like I know most people here, which is Eric and Aga. So I'm actually repping my Yale scrubs today. So from where I was my last job. So Eric and I know from Yale. But currently I'm at the Medical College of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. It's actually really funny because my career kind of took a little bit of turn. I did simulation fellowship at Yale. That's where I met Eric. And I initially wanted to go to simulation fellowship because I thought simulation was such a cool modality, such a good instructional strategy and educational tool to teach learners. Throughout the fellowship, I actually realized that simulation is not just education, but I actually gained a lot of interest in simulation research. I think it's because of my mentors, like, Eric knows and Aga knows that, Ambrose was my mentor at Yale. And also Dr. Auerbach, Mark Auerbach, was a PDM guy who's also huge in sim research. So I had two great mentors who are really into research. That's when I realized that I just wanted to know more about how to do educational research. So although my fellowship did not be paid for from Yale, I did a Johns Hopkins after doing some research that it was also during COVID at that time. So I was like, I don't want to travel or to attend like mandatory classes. My other option was maybe Harvard. There was this like a Harvard certificate course, but I was like, no, I want to do something that's home, that I can control my pace and all that. So I actually decided to do Johns Hopkins one, and then I love it. I learned so much of it, like how to do educational research, how to design from it, what is the difference between clinical research and all. So that actually helped me to find a job here at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And the reason I say my career took a little bit of turn was that I was given such a great opportunity here where I became a simulation center director for hospital. That's when I realized that I wanted to tie in what I'm doing with research with patient safety. So actually, the reason why I decided to go to the MBA is that I wanted to know what I'm doing with this healthcare simulation research matters to patient, whether it's a cost-effective analysis or how what I'm doing is actually saving patients in terms of dollar amount. So that's why I'm actually enrolled into the Master's of Business Administration starting in August. So I'm throwing a lot of healthcare money dollars into education. Is it worth it? I am not sure, because I am actually paying everything out of my pocket. None of my department is supported for it, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
So you guys mentioned a lot about how you funded it, or like the dollar support. Did you guys ever ask your departments for like time support, so, like time to do your master's?
I did not. Well, I was kind of just told like it wasn't going to have any. I think in hindsight, I would have pushed a little harder for a touch of time support to do it, knowing that some of my colleagues have since gotten supported time to do well a PhD. But honestly, like it wasn't that big of a deal. Like I think that the Hopkins Masters, the time commitment isn't restrictive at the Hopkins program. So they tell you it's about 8 to 10 hours a week, but really it's it's like 4 to 6 hours for most courses most of the time. So I didn't feel it constrictive in any way.
From my perspective, I did ask for time, did not get it. So that was a non-starter for me. I also agree. I mean, after med school, something like an education master's, it's
Right.
easy. It's so easy. If I would have had Dragon dictation to write like the written portion, I didn't have dictation then, but if I would have had dictation, it would have been like twice as easy. It didn't take that much time, and I was able to do it in my spare time, no problem.
That's a good question. I actually am one of the people who I thought not asking the department for either time support or paying for half of my master's degree. And here's the reason why for me. I didn't want to be attached to the department. What that means is that when you ask your department for some kind of a support, you have to pay your department back with your duty. And at that time, when I was at Yale, I wasn't really sure if I was going to stay there or not. And if I were to move somewhere, I thought you would not have too much of freedom at that time in terms of that. And the time support, I do agree. I mean, when I looked at the curriculum, I thought I was able to manage like 10 to 20 hours extra of what I was doing at my own time, because everything was asynchronous. So I didn't think I needed to ask my department for that money. As Dr. Rice said, your department heads are amazing. They will support you, but also at the same time, they're so stingy. They will not pay for you unless there's a really good reason for it. You can ask. There's no harm in asking those, but also at the same time, be careful and make sure you have a clear plan of what you ask for. And then if you do, and if your department chair does buy you, then you'll get your some whether financial support or some buy down with it.
And I'll also add the other part of that adds value, and it's not necessarily time, but is the productivity that you often get out of your master's or out of your advanced degree program. And like I think I ended up with 3 papers out of my master's, or at least 2, depending on how you actually define it. But so you're kind of doing the work along the way that you would be doing for the most part, and that has value as well. So even though you probably won't get time support from your division and department, you get this kind of added value out of it at the end of the day.
Yeah, to echo what Justin said, I had a grant supported work that I was doing internationally, and with the master's program, I could use that as an excuse to engage a lot of people for mentorship on that research project and get I used it as a master's capstone. And so I had access to a lot more resources, a statistician from the master's program that then supported my grant supported work. this educational program building work. So it ended up working out quite well for me, and I was able to engage all those extra resources.
Yeah, I do agree with both that you're gonna get so much out of this, I think, with the masters. And I don't know what everybody's thought process is, but if your thought process is like, oh, by doing this master's program, I'm gonna be able to get some kind of a director role, sure, it can definitely help you in that, building your resume and stuff. But I would be more thoughtful and be reflective. Does this master's, are you really gonna get something out of this? I personally got so much out of my master's degree at Hopkins, and it really helps me with the simulation research that I do. So instead of just the position you can get, you can also think about, is this really going to help me? And as Dr. Jeffers said, he got 3 manuscripts out of it. Yeah, like it kind of builds you into, of course, the process and all this stuff, but there's more added value into it, like a lot of intangibles that you can get from the master's degree. So I'm a huge proponent of the master's degree, although maybe some people say, oh, it's a lot of money that you have to throw in there. It's a lot of time commitment. But if you look at your career as a long, if you think of as an academic like physician, I personally think it really is worth it. So that's my take.
Can I ask a probing question here? So it sounds like unanimously you guys all say that the master's degree is worthwhile. Intangibles, tangibles, it makes sense to get the master's degree if you're pursuing a degree in education or want to assume some sort of administrative role beyond your clinical duties. Time and money seem to be like kind of recurrent themes where there's a substantial cost and there's time that you need to take the class. Now, maybe, master's in health education is, certainly easier for you than what your previous academic, responsibilities have been. But certainly on top of an attending schedule, if you're working full time, it can be quite laborious. None of you guys did a fellowship, and actually, Yang, you did a fellowship, but I was wondering, like, looking back on it now, do you think just skipping fellowship, becoming an attending, and paying for that cost of that degree out of your own pocket without having buy down time from your department chair is better, different than if you had chose to go to a fellowship where perhaps you could negotiate the cost of the degree into your fellowship contract? Now, I'm 2/3 into an MPH at Harvard. I did the program in clinical effectiveness, and I'm getting the degree in public health as opposed to the master's in science. So I'm kind of stuck, but I get this question a lot, and I thought this panel discussion would be interesting to see what other people thought. But I was able to negotiate the time and the cost of the MPH degree, at least for the time I was a fellow at Bay State in research as part of my fellowship contract. I'm paying for the 3rd semester out of my own pocket this upcoming summer semester. But during my time, I literally got 6 weeks during the summer where I was not expected to work clinically to pursue that degree. And they built in the cost plus fringe on top of it to cover the cost of the degree for that semester. What are your thoughts?
So I'm really curious to hear Tom's thoughts since he's kind of doing both or done both. But I think fellowship versus a master, they're two different. They're just different, and they're both are going to offer positives and negatives and unique contributions to your career. And I don't think one replaces the other in either direction.
Yeah, my argument was if I'm taking 2 years to do a fellowship, because I think it's really tough to do a sort of a meaningful 1-year research fellowship. It's tough to kind of go to a new institution, start a project, and have anything productivity wise in 12-month period. So I knew I was in for the 2-year fellowship training. I knew I was taking a pay cut. Like I was deferring my attending salary and pretty much working as a PGY 4 because it's a 3-year PGY program where I am now, taking a pay cut by becoming a fellow for 2 years. So for me, in order to justify the financial sort of sacrifice, I wanted to get the degree at the end of the fellowship training.
Yep.
But not all fellowships are 2 years, and not all MPH degrees are 3 semesters. But I guess it just depends on your individual situation and what you're expecting out of the experience.
Yep. This is the short answer. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I think, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Eric, I think like my simulation fellowship was not mandatory for you to get a master's degree. The only reason I got it is because throughout fellowship, with the mentors that I was working, I just had interest in learning about educational research. I think like for me, my fellowship was very good. I mean, I was involved in a lot of things. I was participatory in some of the grant stuff that they were doing, but also educating medical students. So it just like tells you a lot of things about simulation. And one thing that helped me was that by doing that, it kind of tells you what you like about simulation, what you are not going to do about simulation. Because like, if you view simulation, I mean, because I'm a simulation person, so I can only tell you from the simulation perspective. Simulation is just not teaching residents and medical students. There's way more to it. There's like the administration perspective. There's the patient safety perspective. There's a research perspective. And I felt like fellowship was a little bit helpful for me in kind of guiding what about simulation that I want to tailor my career towards to. And that's what that really helped me about. But let's say if I did not do simulation fellowship and did get the master's degree, I personally do not know if I would have gotten it, just because I did not know too much about education research before simulation fellowship. So, but also at the same time, yes, like the fellowship is not equal to master's degree. I think there is some overlap here and there, but I think there is some separate component of the things that you can do fellowship without the master's, or you don't have to do fellowship to get the master's. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, when I kind of tell, I guess, people earlier in their careers who are asking me these types of questions, it's like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what do you see yourself doing? And would a fellowship help you get there? Would a master's degree help you get there? Is the time and money investment worthwhile? And I kind of tailor the conversation more on an individual kind of level to see exactly what they expect out of their career, and then maybe offering some advice as to whether I think the advanced degree and the time commitment with fellowship would be a benefit for them. I think just doing a fellowship or doing a master's degree or any sort of secondary graduate level degree without having a clear plan as to what you intend on doing afterwards is a little less, I guess, you said fortuitous, but a little bit less sort of meaningful than if you can kind of figure out the ends and then kind of discuss the means in terms of how to get there, in terms of making yourself look the most qualified as a potential applicant into those types of roles.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. And it also speaks to, like, I did not get tuition remission, as Justin was talking about, Dr. Jeffers was talking about, and people were asking, well, why am I going to Drexel and paying out of pocket? Well, I didn't go to a sim fellowship, so I wanted to go to the simulation master's program that was being run by Sharon Griswold, who's an EM simulation person. And in skipping a fellowship, I needed mentorship. And so just going to the Hopkins Med Ed, I wasn't going to be around people that did sim, because I know all the people that do sim at Hopkins, and I wasn't going to get any more mentorship. So that's exactly. I needed the mentorship and I wanted the education, and looking at kind of the cost analysis, that's why I ended up going to that Drexel program. So exactly what you said, you got to look at what you want, what are your goals, what are you looking for? And then also the time and money cost. Coming out of residency, I was used to working a harder schedule than an attending schedule. And so I was like, I can do this, and I can do this on top of what I was doing before. It still felt easy to do that much work compared to residency. So it's just a matter of what, and also I don't have like small children or anything to pay for. So shelling that out of pocket money right up front, it wasn't as big of a deal, because I was making that attending salary where I had some extra cash, as opposed to then if I went into a fellowship and maybe didn't have that. So yeah, you got to look at what you need and what your resources are.
Do you think in the roles you are now, or at least where you're trying to get to, like the secondary degree, the extra letters after the MD, DO, the credentials is necessary? Like, will you be taken seriously as an applicant at an academic institution applying for these higher sort of administrator roles or director roles without having that advanced degree training under your belt or on your CV? Like in terms of how competitive the sort of workplace is becoming in these academic institutions, like, will you even be considered as a serious applicant without either a fellowship training or a degree or both?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of layers to that question, and I think the first kind of branch point for me in thinking about that question is, do you want to be a dean or a professor? And I think if you want to go the dean path, having specifically for med ed, like having a med ed advanced degree is going to be helpful. But going the professor route and like the research route, I don't, you're going to do your research in the master's is just going to help you do that. It's not necessarily going to help you get a position, I don't think. But that said, like looking at the current kind of generation of people at Hopkins, it's becoming the norm to have some sort of advanced degree, whether it's an MBA, MPH, Master's of Science of some sort, either from a previous life or done during med school or as faculty. It seems to be just the direction that things are going, just to be an academic person, let alone get higher positions. So I don't think it's ever going to be like a requirement to be in an academic environment with an advanced degree, but it's not going to hurt. It's the time and the money that really you have to think about and consider.
Yeah, speaking from a different department in the same institution, our education group is really strong and it's pretty stacked with advanced education degrees. And if you are coming in an educational leadership role, you're not going to be competitive if you don't have an advanced degree. You'd have to have something else, some other program building experience or some other experience that would really sell you as an advanced educator when the rest of us all have either master's in education or an MPH or some sort of higher education background. So I think it's probably department dependent also. So.
Yeah, I agree. It's like, I don't know what to say, because I think having that master's degree definitely helped me getting where I am. And unfortunately, in an academic institution, I feel like it's kind of becoming the norm, as they say. Having some kind of a master's degree or some kind of an advanced degree kind of helps you find a niche or a administrative role within a department. I think that's kind of what's going on right now. And especially when the academic jobs are so tight, even having a fellowship or just having a master's degree actually helps you find a job in an academic institution. Unfortunately, the chairs of the department, I'm not saying just about ours, I think across the United States, I think they will probably not hire you unless they're really, really short with their faculty, unless there is something that you can bring to the department. I could be just a little bit short-sighted from that. But I think, so having like the fellowship or master's degree, I think kind of helps you find a job in academia as well, unfortunately. I do believe that there is a role for clinical faculty within the academic institution. I don't think it should be just limited to the master's and fellowship people. But I feel like that, unfortunately, that is becoming the norm of the US residency programs and the department.
When you guys were looking at which programs to apply to, how did you guys decide like that particular program? Like Julie had mentioned, like what things went into her decision to picking Drexel. So like for Justin, like why did you decide to start at University of Cincinnati and then move over to Hopkins, and the same thing with Tom?
Yeah, so at the time, and I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, but at the time, the Cincinnati program was really the only 100% virtual option. I think University of Indiana at the time also had that was mostly virtual, but you still had to go for like 2 weeks a year or something like that. So that's why I started there, and it really was the kind of the preeminent master's medical education program in the U.S. at that time. So that was kind of why I started there, and then just the tuition remission made it a no-brainer to try to transfer whatever credits I could and just finish out the master's program here. The MEHP here was relatively new. I think I was like the 3rd year cohort to come in. So I also saw it as a nice opportunity to be involved and get in on the ground floor and potentially help them build it out. And I have, like, I've stayed on adjunct faculty with the School of Education, and I teach a couple of courses within the master's program. We're getting ready to start a PhD program for anybody that's interested. And so it was just a really great opportunity timing wise, and a nice place for me to kind of jump in there.
I kind of explained it earlier. I wanted to go somewhere there is a asynchronous 100% most likely, because it was during COVID. I didn't want to travel so far, and I did not know what the airline situation was going to be. So I didn't want to travel too far. And I wanted to go somewhere there was good reputation, like, Hopkins. Because I did some research, there was some 100% asynchronous online masters in education here or there, but there were also some maybe like every few months you do in person. I think UIC was one that's also really good one that I was told, and USC was another one that I was told. So I did some research here and there, and after all, I thought Hopkins was going to give me a good education, and it was good, like 100% asynchronous. And what I liked about the Hopkins was that there was the capstone had a different track of capstone. There was like a research capstone, and there was like, I believe it was leadership capstone. I think that was the term. And I feel like I could make some choices, and then I could learn a lot from the course. That's why I ended up choosing Hopkins.
And I ask, so when people look at, there's like a gazillion different programs, as you guys have alluded to, like there's USC, there's UIC, University of Cincinnati, Hopkins, UAB, there's lots of different programs. Each one kind of advertises different amounts of time it takes to do the master's. In the end, how long did it take for you guys to complete yours?
Mine's a little bit of a skewed answer, because I ended up having 6 credits transfer, but I felt like I should have had about 12. So I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, and kind of delayed really starting. And then really, I just took like one course at a time. But because I had credits transfer, they kind of lost track of where I was. All of this stuff has been worked out, like from an administration perspective. So it actually took me about 5 years to finish with my capstone, but really that was only like 2.5, 3 years worth of work. Like I should have started my capstone earlier, like a whole year earlier. They just kind of lost track of that credit transfer. So that's why it was a little bit delayed for me. But one course at a time, and then your capstone, it's like a 2.5 to 3.5 year program.
Again, my program does not exist in the state I took it in anymore, but it was 2 years part-time, and then there was 3 weeks that I did in person, like intensive. I went to Philadelphia, would stay at a hotel room and just do like 8 to 10 hour days, and just knocked it out. I also did my capstone. I started it really early because, again, I was already doing grant supported work, and I just decided to make that my capstone to free up resources to then help with my capstone. So I kind of did it in parallel with my other coursework and got it done pretty early.
Yeah, mine one is, I have not graduated, but I'm doing my capstone. So whenever I'm graduating, I'm graduating. So I'm actually done with all the courses. So mine one took about 2.5 to 3 years. I actually finished all my courses as a full-time student, like in a year and a half, I think. What took me was that during COVID, our institution was so slow with this IRB process, which the research capstone that I did. And then for the Hopkins one, I mean, it's probably similar to other things. You needed your IRB approved from your own institution and the Hopkins institution, and the Hopkins IRB would not be approved if your own institution is not approved. So there was a lot of that administration thing going on at the IRB, which delayed a lot of my research capstone processes. But I was planning on finishing at 2 years. I had no social life, as Dr. Baccio knows, at Yale. So I was just literally just working, and during COVID, all the bars and restaurants, everything was closed. I was like, I'll just come home and just work on my Johns Hopkins one, which was really great. But I know that people have taken, as Dr. Jeffers said, like up to like 4 years. I know that because, you know, we are all like full-time faculty. You have your own life with your, you know, family and everything. So I've seen people finishing as early as 2 years, as, you know, as long as 4 to 5 years. And mine is projected to be about 2.5 to 3 years.
And I'll just let everyone know. So I'm also doing a master's. I'm doing mine through the University of Cincinnati, so all virtual. And I am coming up to 2 years. I'm done with all my coursework pretty much. I just have to do my capstone project. So I'm hoping Moby will take me 3 years. Hoping. We'll see.
I will say, probably most programs are this way, but specifically the Hopkins one, just because that's the one I'm involved in. They completely understand that you are a professional worker, and the MEHP at Hopkins technically has a 5-year cap, but I mean, at least one student per cohort needs longer than that just because of life, and we get it, even on like a course to course basis, like, you know, late assignments or whatever, because you ended up getting called in and you weren't expecting it or whatever the case may be. I think most programs just generally understand that you're an adult.
How does that work from a tuition standpoint? Are you essentially paying per credit, and then once you complete the course, you pay for the next course, determining the number of credits it is?
Yeah, pretty much. So
like you're not paying for a semester, you're paying,
right,
you know, for the credit for the course. Okay.
Yeah, it's a course by course basis, or although you probably get billed semester to semester. But yeah, it's course based.
Yep, I agree. I mean, when I was taking just courses, I was paying probably like every semester, every month, whatever the installment plans that you were doing. When I was not doing capstones because of the IRB, obviously you wouldn't pay for it. So you actually had more money in your bank account because you wouldn't pay for it. Well, when I was doing my research capstone again, to graduate, I had to pay again. So it's like, yeah, it's like a credit based. And I would say most of these programs, correct me if I'm wrong, is really good with your financial aid as well. So obviously, like, you know, the fact that we're physicians, they all think we're going to make a lot of money, which is actually not true with all the debts that we have. So let's say if you do have to take the financial aid through like the FAFSA or something, they're very helpful in terms of that, just like any other students.
Really quickly, and this is just really random, I want to throw it out there since so many people are in like public service loan forgiveness. Just a really quick thing. If you go into any master's program, I paid my cash for this, but for some reason they still put my loan payments for med school on hold. And then later on, because I was in PSLF, I had to go back and argue that I had never consented to be put on hold or have my other payment halted, or or to be put back in forbearance. So if you do go into an advanced degree, check if you're doing med school loans, and especially if you're in these like PSLF, especially now that we're, you know, you get or people are getting payments that were qualifying during the pandemic, because you really want to continue to get credit for all of that, and you don't want the going into another degree program to mess that up. So keep an eye if you're paying out those paying on those other loans, so it doesn't mess up whatever loan repayment plan you're in. It was weird. I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah,
I was like paying for this, and it's like they just did it on their own.
Yeah, I had a similar issue with the masters. They automatically assumed that my Harvard, because I was paying that tuition, meant that my PSLF loans I would be paying, and it would be out of forbearance, and I was essentially not getting the $0 qualifying payments because of the COVID relief. Which had to contact the lender, which had since changed from Department of Education and Fed loans to Mohela, but it was able to be cleared up in a few weeks with some paperwork. But yeah, absolutely, I had a similar experience.
Student loans are the worst.
They are, but you know what, guys? I got.
Have you ever tried to contact your lender? Have you ever spoken to anyone? Like,
it's awful. It's awful. But I did get all my loans forgiven, so hang in there. Because I got like over $200,000 forgiven. Hang in there. It's like totally worth it when you get it. It happens.
And you don't have to pay tax on the amount that's forgiven, correct?
Yeah, you do not have to pay tax. Now, they said that state by state, you may have to pay tax. And when I asked how I find that out, they said, well, your state will let you know. And Maryland never said anything to me. So I am just going to leave that there. But yeah, I didn't have to pay tax.
So one other question that I've heard is that, so when you look at different programs, there's MHPEs, MSEDs, there's MBAs, lots of different, or just like lots of different letters for different types of masters. Do you guys think it matters what exact type of like masters in medical education you do, or anything like that? For
It's all semantics. It's just a way for programs to try to make themselves stand out. So like when you hear MEHP, you should think of Hopkins as opposed to just saying Masters of Medical Education. So it's all PR marketing gimmicks.
Yeah, mine is an MS, and nobody knows what that means. And so I just have to explain it all the time. And then they're like, oh, that's rather specific and cool. Like, yeah, but nobody knows what an MS is. Like, what the hell is that?
I agree. I think there's no difference. It's pretty much all semantics. Like some people get masters in education, says MED. You know, Hopkins says a special one as MHPE. I mean, it's my first time hearing about MS. That's actually really cool. Like my friend has MSAM. It's pretty much whatever you want to make it, and your like school supports it. But I don't think it really matters personally.
So I want to open it up. Any other audience members with questions?
Yeah. Well, my last thing is, please, I may be biased. I highly encourage you doing the master's degree if you want to stay in academia. I mean, I learned a lot. Was it a lot of time commitment? Yes. Was it a lot of money? Yes. Do I ever regret it? No. I've never singly regretted any time that, I went through the master's degree, hence why maybe going to the second master's degree and just like providing money to society and schools. But I mean, maybe it's part of the fact that I just want to learn forever, but I think it's any kind of master's degree, if you're really intrigued to learn the process, I think it's going to worth every single penny that comes out of your tuition. I think I may be biased. What do you guys think?
No,
Yeah. I can't agree. I can't agree more. I feel like I also saved a lot of time because I have a good like bird's eye view of a lot of topics that I was kind of learning piece by piece. And once I got a larger viewpoint of the topics that I was interested in, where they sat within the larger kind of body of work and literature that's come before, it really advanced my thinking in how I was approaching these problems of program building, and just really it informed my thinking in a way that advanced the questions that I was asking, my research questions that I was asking. I got more specific. I could talk to other educators and communicate more clearly with them and use their language. I thought it really enriched my experience, and I absolutely loved it. And I really encourage people to do it. But again, I don't encourage to do what my husband calls the achievement cycle. Don't just get a degree to get a degree. Make sure it's like what you want and it's going to work for you. We've all like are used to getting gold stars and like collecting degrees. Actually, as soon as I got out of this master's program, I was like, oh my God, I want to get my PhD in like behavioral, like organizational behavioral psychology. And he was like, no, you're done. You're timed out for 4 years. So it really just expanded my view of all the different questions I was looking at and made them more specific. And I loved it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's all about means though, and both financial and time. If you have the means, you can't go wrong. It's only going to help.
I agree. It's like, so my girlfriend is a nurse, so I can make fun of nurses. So like, like those nurses like MSN, RN, A, B, C, D, E, F, G,
Yeah.
like, put all the letters after your like RNs. I mean, we're not doing that just for fun of it. As you guys said, if you find the value in it, I think it's going to be totally worth it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for our 3 panelists. That was a really good talk about advanced degrees. I want to thank everybody for their time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. And Tom, be on the lookout for the PhD announcement in the next, I don't know, next to a year. If you can't stop.
I cannot give more money to Hopkins. I do not have, so, but yes, thank you. Bye, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.